What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So now that the draft lottery is in the books, my New York Islanders have jumped up to the first overall selection, as well as the Utah Hockey Club going all the way up to fourth overall. It's time for a mock draft. It is mock draft day, mock draft 6.0. We've done 5 previous iterations, and now we fully have not only the top 16, we have the full top 21, or maybe the top 20 because Ottawa's at 21, and they might be giving up their first round pick because of the Donov trade. But yeah, here is the full order in all its glory, and we are going to be mocking away, baby. This is my favorite time of the month when looking at it. What this is going to be based on, this is not just my rankings, who I think the best players are. Mocked, you know how they say like on Twitter, retweets don't equal endorsements? Mocked picks don't equal endorsements for me. This is what I think these teams are going to do based on, of course, I still do value the best players here, but also what their positional needs are. Do they need a winger? Do they need a center? Right-handed defense? Left-handed defense? As well as draft history. Some general managers tend to value physicality and size. Some tend to manage more so about skill. So yeah, let's get into it. And up first, at first overall, I have my New York Islanders selecting Matthew Schaefer. I think you go best player available here. If that is Michael Misa for the new general manager, I wouldn't hate that as well. But Schaefer is my best player available. And especially when you look at the fact we already got Yzerman, Ritchie, Matt Barzal's he's kind of old actually, at 28 years old, but still a stud. I'm not as high on Noah Dobson as others. I think he's a good top pair guy, but maybe not that true number one that we saw flashes of last season. You get Matthew Schaefer, 6'2", dominant two-way defenseman, one of the best skating defenseman prospects that we have seen in recent memory. Not the longest track record again this season, 22 points, 17 games in like 4 periods at the U20s, at the World Juniors. He was very good at the Hlinka Gretzky Cup. But even last year, although the point totals weren't there, he impressed scouts a decent amount. A September 2nd birthday, which I've harked on a lot. He is 2 weeks away from being a 2026 eligible guy. Someone like Luke Hughes also had that going in his direction. So like Misa's an April birthday, but someone like Porter Martone or Higgins, Schaefer's like 9-10 months younger than. He's just such a special defenseman prospect. In my opinion, I think he's a better prospect than Owen Power from 2021. I was lower on Owen Power than number 1 than others. I had him like number 3 or number 4. But yeah, he's, in my opinion, the best defenseman prospect since Rasmus Dahlin. Take him. Don't overthink it. Won't hate Michael Misa if they select him as well. Or even James Higgins, considering we jump so much. But Matthew Schaefer, write it in. Easy pick. Up first and second overall, I have San Jose selecting Michael Misa. I don't think that they should galaxy brain this. If they could maybe make some kind of move to trade up to first overall for the New York Islanders, you maybe explore that, because positionally they do need Schaefer more than Michael Misa, but there is a significant gap between Misa and the 3rd or 4th or 5th best prospect in this draft. You just take Michael Misa. You have probably the best forward core in the NHL from 2030 to 2036. It would be disgusting. Celebrini, Smith, Misa, Chernyshov, that played with Misa this year at the OHL and had 55 points in 23 games, as well as guys like Quinton Musty. They still do have Dickinson. They do still have Cagnani. Down the line, maybe you have to trade for a stud right-handed defenseman. But yeah, you take Misa, 62 goals, 72 assists, 134 points in 65 games, up there with the likes of Patrick Kane and Connor McDavid in terms of the best OHL draft years of the 21st century. John Tavares as well. Should be, if he's your second line center going forward, you have such a bright future. You're probably going to end up kicking Will Smith out to the wing. But again, that's a good problem to have. Don't overthink this. Don't trade back, in my opinion. Get Michael Misa. Lock it up. At 3rd overall, this is when the draft really begins, in my opinion. I have Chicago taking Porter Martone. Not my 3rd overall prospect, but I think fit-wise, it does make sense. Get Bedard, a bigger winger, 6'3", 200 pounds. The skating is a bit of a concern, but it has been improving over the time, and the skill is just so much there. 98 points this year in his draft year. Last year having 71 points in 60 games. Shit ton of skill. Chicago, you would maybe love a second-line center, but Frank Nazar has really proved himself in his rookie year, so I think you just get Bedard help. The top 4 in terms of the defense core, whether it's Rinzel, Leshinov, forgetting someone, Vlasic, and Korchinski, that's kind of set in stone at this point. I'm not saying, obviously, if they were selecting first overall, I consider Schaefer, but you're not forcing like Jackson Smith or Kashawn Atchison here. So just take Porter Martone, even if I don't love him in terms of a prospect, still immensely talented guy that can be a legit 30, 35 goal, near point per game guy with Connor Bedard going forward. Next up at 4th overall, this might be a little bit shocking as well. I have Caleb Desnoyers. If you watch my prospect rankings, I had him decently high. For Utah, you could argue James Higgins. I think him and Logan Cooley are a little bit too similar of players, a little bit of undersized centers. They do have Barrett Hayden, but I think Desnoyers has a significantly higher ceiling if Utah wants to eventually be a true contender. Cooley number 1 center, Desnoyers number 2 center, as that more so two-way beast that I think Desnoyers really could be, and is at 6'2" versus Cooley's a little bit undersized. Great season this year in the OHL, 34 goals, 80 points in 54 games, killing the playoffs, has like 24 points in 13 games. He has all the makings of a 65, 70 point elite second line center, low end first line center. So for the Utah Hockey Club, I think he makes sense. I wish last year they went with Zane Parekh at 6th overall, and then this year went forward. They went with forward TJ. I still like TJ Ginla, but that would have been optimal. I think you just take a forward because the defensemen 3 through 6 or 7 is more so. There is a forward tier where I don't think you force a defenseman here if you're the Utah Hockey Club. You take Desnoyers and assemble such an amazing 3-center deep lineup, and you don't worry about it. At 5th overall, the Nashville Predators, I have Barry Trotz selecting James Higgins. When looking at him, 37 points in 37 games at college this year. You expected maybe a little bit more because he was playing with Gabriel Pro and Ryan Leonard, but still a very impressive season on top of last year, having by far the best draft year -1 of anybody in this class. 47 points in 26 games at the USHL level, set like the all-time U18s point record. Yeah, still playmaking vision is off the charts. Could end up being a legit number 1 center, or if you kick him to wing, a damn good first-line winger. For Nashville, they don't really have any need. You just take the best player available, and if they think it's James Higgins, you select James Higgins. At 6th overall, I have the Philadelphia Flyers selecting Anton Frundell. This would be an ideal situation. This would be awesome for them to still get a pretty high-level center at 6th overall. You get Michkov, his center. Frundell, a big dude already, 6'1", 200 pounds, an elite shot. Those two, goal-scoring-wise, would be pretty damn impressive. 25 points in 29 games this year at the second-tier Swedish league. And he's also a pretty damn good playmaker. You just let him and Michkov run off in terms of being your 2 franchise forwards. Going forward, he's already a grown man. He could potentially play. He might be the most NHL-ready guy next season, just given his frame and already is playing against grown men. Very impressive for Anton Frundell, and I think Philadelphia would be very happy if he fell to them at 6th overall. At 7th, the Boston Bruins. I have them swinging on Roger McQueen. They like their bigger guys. Roger McQueen, 6'5", 6'6". It would probably be between him and Jake O'Brien at this point. I think that they would maybe lean towards Roger McQueen, considering their draft history prior. There's major back concerns with McQueen, especially as a guy that's 6'5", 6'6", only played 17 games this season, had 10 goals, 10 assists for 20 points. But if he hits, very good in transition with that size, he could be really special. I could see Don Sweeney betting on the upside and potentially saving his job, trying to save his job by landing a guy like Roger McQueen. Next up at 8th overall, Seattle. I have Radim Murka here. I think I've mocked him here like 3 or 4 times in my mock drafts. But yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. When looking at Seattle, they need defense, especially at 8th overall. If they were selecting 5th or 6th overall, I'd maybe consider a forward just because, again, 3 through 7 I think is clear for the forwards. But at 8th overall, I think you go with Radim Murka, 6'6", right-handed defenseman, big boy, very productive this year in the WHL after coming over, 35 points in 43 games. They got Beniers, they got Wright, they got Cadden, they got Furcus, they got Rakoff. Get a defenseman, especially if you're selecting 8th overall, unless, of course, like Frundell, Higgins, Martone fall to you, Desnoyers fall to you at 8th overall. But if that's not the case, I think you go with Radim Murka. At 9th overall, the Buffalo Sabres. I have them selecting Victor Eklund, brother of William Eklund. I think that they would have loved to get Radim Murka. Their need is definitely right-handed defense. I don't think that the next right-handed defenseman is in the same class as an Eklund or a Jake O'Brien. So I have them going Eklund here, 31 points in 42 games in the Swedish second-tier league, playing alongside Anton Frundell. Just a really good add in terms of their forward core. They're pretty set in terms of forwards, so I think you go winger here in Eklund. Eklund is either the best or second best player available at this point. At 10th overall, I have the Anaheim Ducks selecting Jake O'Brien. Not quite the most verbeek pick. He does like to select his big guys, but I think at this point, with Mertka off the board, with McQueen off the board, I think you just go best player available, and at this selection, it is by far Jake O'Brien. This season, 98 points in the OHL after already winning Rookie of the Year last year. You might have to eventually kick him out to wing or something like that, but if he ends up being better than Mason McTavish and supplanting him as the second line center, that's a good problem to have. Like if he ends up hitting so much, I think you just go BPA. And he is 6'2", 170 pounds. Needs to put on serious weight, but he is pretty stature-wise pretty big in terms of height. At 11th overall, the Pittsburgh Penguins, I have them selecting Jackson Smith. Best player available, I would lean more so towards defense. I think Jackson Smith might be the best player available at this pick. But yeah, when looking at Pittsburgh, they're going to suck next year. Next year, the consensus top four guys right now of McKenna, Rubrick, Bjork, and Stenberg are all forwards. They're probably going to be getting a top 5, top 6 pick next year. So I would enforce a defenseman. Again, if one of Jake O'Brien's there, I'd probably go Jake O'Brien. But in this situation, I think you go defenseman. And Jackson Smith, still 6'3", pretty damn productive this year, 54 points in 68 games. Very good skater. A lot of tools, and especially on that left side for the Pittsburgh Penguins, could potentially be their top pair LHD of the rebuild, and that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. So I have them going Jackson Smith. The New York Rangers at 12th overall. I think this is probably going to end up being Pittsburgh's pick because of the JT Miller. I'd send the pick now instead of risk a 2026 unprotected first, but I have them taking Kashawn Atchison. He is an electric player, and when looking at the New York Rangers, on the left side, well, they just have Keandre Miller and Adam Fox in terms of like foundational pieces within that defense core. They have some young, exciting forwards, so I think that they would more so lean defense here. I know that they picked EJ Emery last year, but he's right-handed and solely defensive defenseman. He had 1 point in 31 games this year, so I think you go with someone like Atchison that has a lot of pop in terms of laying guys out, as well as some offense. Monster season, had like 29 goals this year. I think he could be an ideal second pair guy behind Keandre Miller, behind that loaded top pair of Miller and Fox that was so good last year. He's one of my favorite prospects in this draft. I wouldn't want him to go to the New York Rangers, but I think it makes all the sense at 12th overall if they do keep this pick. So I have Atchison going at 12th overall. At 13th overall, I have Justin Carbonneau. Big goal scoring numbers this season after last year being highly productive. 46 goals, 89 points in 62 games. An amazing skater. I don't think that he's in that O'Brien Eklund tier, but him and the guy that I think I have next are in like a kind of a tier of their own until it falls off, and then like 15 through 35 of this draft is kind of up in the air. So I think for Detroit, you get some more goal scoring help, and you definitely go forward here considering their defense core is set with Seider, Edvinson, and ASP, as well as Albert Johansson. So yeah, I think Justin Carbonneau makes a lot of sense here for the Detroit Red Wings. At 14th overall, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Brady Martin is that other guy that I think is in the same tier as Carbonneau. This guy is a menace. Think of like kind of a Brady Tkachuk that's going to lay out people as well as have a shit ton of skill. 33 goals, 39 assists, 72 points in 57 games. Scouts are absolutely frothing over him at World Junior. U18s. Sorry, I keep on messing up the two. At U18s, he lays people out. Almost got suspended, but it ended up getting rescinded. Yeah, I think he in that Columbus forward core would be a menace, playing with guys like Ken Johnson, Adam Fantilli. It'd be awesome to watch. He'd fit in right in at Columbus, so I think that's a pretty easy pick for them. At 15th overall, give me Braden Coots for the Vancouver Canucks. I think with Pedersen, his injury, not saying this guy's going to be better than Pedersen one day, but Hedl also injured and cannot stay healthy in terms of the concussions. I think a center makes a lot of sense here for the Vancouver Canucks, especially Coots that plays for the Seattle Thunderbirds. I assume that they've scouted him a lot. Doesn't have the highest ceiling, but a very high floor guy, a guy that I like a decent amount. 63 points in 60 games, very good at U18s. Yeah, I think he's going to go around in this 14 to 20 range. Scouts seem to really like him. And for Vancouver, it is a pick that does make a decent amount of success. Could be a solid second-line center going forward. At 16th overall, the Montreal Canadiens. I have them taking a swing on one of these picks. I have them selecting Carter Bear when this guy was fully healthy. A top 8 through 13 prospect, pretty consensus in the draft. Tore his Achilles, that is brutal. That is not as simple as like an ACL or just like broken bones, obviously. That is massive concerns. But when this guy was healthy, man, he was freaking killing it. 40 goals, 42 assists, 82 points in 56 games. Such an extremely twitchy and high IQ kind of guy. If he really hits, he could be an elite second liner for this Montreal Canadiens team. And again, they have 2 picks, so why not take a chance on a high upside guy that's only really falling because of his injury, not because of his on-ice play. This guy has the talent to be a 65, 70 point guy in terms of offensive talent. At 17th, and again, much like the Rangers, I think that they're going to give up the pick. I think Montreal's probably going to trade one of these picks, but if they select both picks, I have them selecting Lyndon Lakovich, 6'4", 195 pounds. They kind of take a chance on a guy like Carter Bear and to get more of a prototypical middle six power forward in Lakovich. And he also has a bunch of skill. Last year, 39 points on a loaded Moose Jaw team. This year, 27 goals, 31 assists, 58 points in 47 games. Yeah, just your ideal. Needs to be a little bit more physical, but your ideal power forward that has a shit ton of skill. And I think that makes sense for the Montreal Canadiens within their middle six as they eventually move off guys like a Josh Anderson just because of age and shit like that. At 18th overall, the Calgary Flames. This is a pretty basic pick. This is coming from New Jersey. I had them selecting Benjamin Kindle. Plays for the Calgary Hitmen, much like the Seattle Thunderbirds and the Vancouver pick. I think that they've probably been scouting this kid a lot, and there's a lot to love about this kid. 99 points in 65 games this season. When looking at Calgary, they got Dustin Wolf in net. I'm not saying that they're going to select a goalie at 18th, but they got Zane Parekh in terms of defensemen, as well as guys like Henry Muse and Bruce Stevich. I think you just swing on forwards with this pick, most likely, and Benjamin Kindle. If he really hits, he's a little bit undersized at 5'10", but a very good skater. He could potentially be a legit 70-ish point guy for the Calgary Flames. At 19th overall, give me Cameron Reed for the St. Louis Blues. When looking at them, they have a bunch of young forwards. Not saying I'd hate the idea of a forward here. They did go defense last year, but it was Adam Yurchek who's on the right side and has dealt with injuries in back-to-back years. So I think I'm going to go with Reed, a left-handed defenseman that a lot of scouts like to a decent degree. He just does everything at a very high level. 6 foot, 54 points in 67 games. This year, Reed and Broberg as your 1-2 on the left side for the next decade. Sounds pretty good for me. Sounds pretty good to me. I think you just write that one in and don't worry about it. At 20th overall, Columbus from the David Yurchek trade. I have them selecting a right-handed defenseman. I have them selecting Logan Hensler. When looking at this, they do need a right-handed defense. Not saying you force this completely, but I think Hensler in this range makes a lot of sense. They have Matejchuk, Werenski on the left side. Their forward core, especially after getting Brady Martin, going to be beyond loaded for the next decade. Hensler, he had a lot of hype coming into this year. I still think he can be a 27 to 35 point, 20 to 21 minute a night, number 3, number 4, good second pair guy to a degree, and that's all you really need if you're Columbus here. Next up, 21st overall. Again, Ottawa might not be selecting this pick because of the Donov trade. They need to give up either this year or next year. I'd give up the 21st in a kind of a weak draft and risk rolling into next year with no pick, but I have them selecting Cole Reshny within that forward core last year. Went Carter Yakinchuk. I think you add to your forward core, you get some more juice there. 92 points in 62 games this year for Cole Reshny. Not a ton of goals, but this team does have some solid goal scorers within the lineup. You get more of a playmaker passer, and I think that he will be a good add to that middle six down the line. 22nd for the Calgary Flames from the Florida Panthers. I have them selecting Jack Nesbitt. This guy is rising a decent amount, and rightfully so after the steps that he took this year. 6'4". Again, with Calgary, bet on these guys with high upside. They kind of made a similar pick back with Sam Hanzik back in the day, but I think Nesbitt is a guy that is going to be flying up draft boards. Would not shock me if Calgary selected him here. 23rd overall, I have the Carolina Hurricanes selecting Milton Gastrin. I had him very high in my draft rankings. I like him a lot. Perfect Rod Brindamore kind of player. Two-way, 6'2", very physical for like a Swedish player. Obviously, the Swedish and Finnish players usually get labeled soft, but no, he uses his body well. Very good this year at Swedish Juniors, around the point per game. Got some run at the SHL level. I think he can be a good second-line center and eventually replace Kakaniemi as the second-line center in 4 to 5 years, and Carolina just can continue to develop at an extremely high rate. 24th overall, the Philadelphia Flyers from the Edmonton Oilers from last year's draft trade. Sasha Boymedian. I think when looking at this, you draft a defenseman with at least one of these first-round picks. They also have the next pick. But Boymedian, great at U18s this year, but also was solid for Boston University. And yeah, for Philadelphia, just add some solid puck-moving defensemen, 6'2". I think he has a very, very high ceiling. Wasn't the most productive because he had Cole Hudson and Tom Willander on his team. At 25th overall, I have Philadelphia selecting Cameron Schmidt. When looking at it, have a beast goal-scoring winger on one line of Michkov, and if Cameron Schmidt Schmidt hits on that second line. That could be disgusting. 5'8", a little bit undersized, but 40 goals this year, 78 points. Not quite to the level of some other smaller skilled guys like DeBrincat and Caulfield, but could be a very good 60-ish point guy that plays on your top power play. Nashville at 26th overall. I have them selecting Blake Fiddler. Everybody's talking about James Higgins because he's from Long Island. The Islanders should select him. Fun fact, Fiddler was born in Nashville, Tennessee. He did shortly after move to Dallas and play growing up there. But I think Fiddler makes a lot of sense for the Nashville Predators. This is also from the Tanner Jeannot trade. They have Tanner Mollendijk on the left side. They have some good young forwards within that, and also I had them drafting a forward. But I think Fiddler on that right side, 6'4", was around half a point per game this year in the WHL. Makes a lot of sense for them at 26th. At 27th, Colin Potter to the Los Angeles Kings. He had a really good U18s, was very productive this year for Arizona State, 22 points in 35 games. Probably don't go defenseman if you're the LA Kings. They barely even played Jordan Spence and why am I blanking on the Brant Clark as of right now. And in terms of who they drafted last year, Liam Greentree, a big dude that has some skating deficiencies. You get Potter this year, a smaller skilled guy. Greentree's also extremely skilled, but is a very good skater. And you add to that young forward core guys that like Byfield, Turcotte, and Lafreniere are going to be playing with in 3 to 4 years. At 28th overall, San Jose from the Dallas Stars, from the McGranlund trade, Henry Brustevich, a right-handed defenseman. That's what San Jose is severely lacking within their defenseman core. I don't think that he's going to be a legit top pair guy, but I think in this range, you draft some guy like Henry, had 42 points in 67 games despite being the number 3 defenseman on the London Knights. They had Sam Dickinson, another San Jose Shark, and Oliver Bonk. I think he could be a low-end, good, okay second pair guy for the most part for San Jose. They might have to get that top pair guy eventually down the line unless they're still in the mix for Landon DuPont come 2027. 29th overall, Chicago from the Jake McCabe trade. I had them selecting Ivan Ryabkin. Might as well take a shot if you're Chicago on like a high upside offensive guy, as I discussed before. They could go defense, but I think their defense core to a degree is set. They haven't had a ton of young NHL proven forwards outside of Bedard and Nazar right now. And I think Ryabkin, if you believe in your development system, could end up being a legit good second liner. We saw all the skill last year in his draft year -1 and some at points this year in the USHL. Good goal scoring year. But take a shot if you're Chicago. You have a large quantity of forward prospects. Some of them probably will hit. Might as well add another lottery ticket to that. Nashville from the Askarov trade, and then this pick was also from the Hurdle trade. I have them selecting Jacob Ice Wozniak. Similar thought process as Ryabkin. This guy in his draft year -1 set like the U20 Swedish League points record, beat out Lucas Raymond, and he was still highly productive this year. He's 6'3", can rip the puck. If you're Nashville, you have a large quantity of forwards. Take another shot on a guy. He would have one of the highest ceilings among the Nashville forward prospects, not named James Higgins. So yeah, I like Wozniak there for Nashville. Our final 2 picks, the Washington Capitals. I have them selecting William Moore. They got a lot of winger prospects. They're kind of set at forwards. And if there was a right-handed defenseman that I would really like here, I'd maybe slot that here. But I think William Moore makes sense. Another guy, decently high upside, 6'2", has a lot of tools, has maybe a little bit of a motor issue. But I trust Washington to develop this guy, potentially turn him into a good second-line center when it's all said and done in 5 to 7 years from now. And they seem to really like their U.S. national team development kids back in 2023, 8th overall. Ryan Leonard, Cole Hudson last year. Continue the trend, select William Moore. And then lastly for the Winnipeg Jets, I got Bill Zonin from the QMJHL. He had 58 points in 68 games last year, took a sizable step this year up to 83 points. 6'2", very fast, will bring some pace like Nikolai Ehlers might be leaving the Winnipeg Jets relatively soon. Doesn't have the skill that Nikolai Ehlers has, but I think he's going to be a staple in their middle six for a very long time. Now let's review our picks 1 through 8. Please draft Matthew Schaefer. Please draft Matthew Schaefer. 9 through 16. I love Atchison. I don't want him to go to the New York Rangers. 17 through 24. Ben Kindle staying put in Calgary. And then 25 through 32. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about this? Who would you move up? Who would you move down? Who am I absolutely crazy for snubbing? Who am I absolutely crazy for throwing on this shit? We'll have another mock draft probably in a month. I'm trying to do I think I'm going to get some other hockey creators, hockey analysts, and do a 4 to 5 person mock draft where we all select every 5th pick. I think that could be fun. Get Grav and maybe some guys over at Daily Faceoff or Elite Prospects. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. I'll be seeing you in the next one. Peace.